welcome to this week's edition of Think Big. I'm your host, Akia Garnett. This is the episode for you if you have a child who's gifted or you know someone who has a child who's gifted. This show is brought to you by the Black Student Fund and the Latino Student Fund. Joining me this week is Leroy Nesbitt, who is the executive director of the Black Student Fund, and Fernanda, Borja, who is the president and CEO of the Latino Student Fund. Stay right here. We'll be right back with a conversation about what it takes to get your child not only into a parochial or private school, but through it as well successfully, and then on to college, and then on to do great things in the world. We'll be right back.
The Black Student Fund has been around for more than 50 years, and it served as an important resource for many, many families in the area who may not have always felt welcomed to independent schools. For school heads and administrators like me, it's a bit of a party and celebration coming to this, not only seeing other school personnel, but to meet so many families, some of whom have traveled from a distance, and I think they know that this is the one fair where they're going to see all the schools in the area.
Independent schools are such a wonderful resource for all the families, but particularly for families of color who may not have necessarily access that we need them to have. So this is a place where you can literally see every kind of education possible in the independent school world. So we have to give everyone an equal playing field. Black Student Fund allows us to do that.
We provide more insight into the admissions process, which has become more complicated than 50 years ago, so that families understand what they're going to have to do to actually apply to schools, complete the testing that's required for admission to the schools, and to position themselves through the financial aid process.
What I'm trying to get out of it is just basically making sure that I can give him better than what I had when I was growing up, and giving him a better start and the best education that I can give them all.
Luke is a special kid. He's pretty advanced, so we were looking for something that's affordable that we could get him in.
Today is a day when people learn that there is hundreds of millions of dollars of financial aid that's given out by these schools. Today is a day of people making connections about their dream for their kids.
I would say that the Washington, D.C. area may have some of the most diverse independent schools in the country, and I think there's a direct link with the Black Student Fund. I think it's been transformative for many individuals, but also for the schools.
The Black Student Fund was founded by a group of parents and also professionals, Hispanic professionals in the area that want to offer different opportunities for the Hispanic community. So the Latino Student Fund was founded in 1994, and since then we have served 4,000 students.
Well, that's great. So what drew you to the fund, Leroy?
I'm a product of independent schools, and I knew that this organization was one of the organizations that was making a difference in terms of creating opportunities for excellence for kids of color, particularly African American kids. So I was hanging around it a little bit as a volunteer, and people sort of got wind of that, and one day they came and asked me to step in. They knew that I was enthusiastic and I was excited about the possibility of working with talented kids and committed families and some of the best schools in America.
And I would like to make that distinction regarding the age groups that you tend to support with the Black Student Fund and the Latino Student Fund.
Yeah, we both are organizations that serve pre-K to 12. Mm-hmm. So our students are between the ages of 5 and 6 to 18.
And the specific support services that you provide to them?
Well, I think we do the same thing. Our goal is to see them to college and to position them for greatness. So it's a wraparound set of services. Mm-hmm. We're support services. We provide a little bit of financial aid, and then we also create a series of activities for our kids. So we have youth development programs, I have academic enrichment programs, I have summer programs, and I have a variety of other activities that we do with the kids and the families to make sure that they're well positioned.
And Maria, what drew you to the Latino Student Fund?
Well, I was looking for school access for my kids, and that's why I was introduced to the Latino Student Fund. And since then, I have been with the fund for 14 years.
Okay, was there something in particular or a number in particular that both your organizations are striving to reach each year?
We like to have 100 students in our program, but we like to touch many more students. I'm sure we're going to talk about our school fair, which allows us to touch thousands of people. But the goal is to not only support our students, but to support the growth of diversity in independent schools.
Well, we work with 300 students per month. We have different programs. We have access to education, that is our independent school work. We help families to apply to independent schools. We have a tutoring program that serves pre-K to 12th grade students, and we have college access as well.
Okay.
So among all the programs, we serve 300 students every month.
And where are your students mostly drawn from?
We are DC metro area, so our students come from anywhere, all over the city, public school, independent schools.
Okay. And the Black Student Fund students?
We draw from DMV, so we have students from DC, all wards. We have students from Montgomery County. We have students from Prince George's County. We have students from Arlington County. We have students from Alexandria County. We have students from Fairfax County. And we even have a student as far away as Howard County.
Wow. Well, kudos to that student and parent who's making that trek. You guys have been put on a lot of different programs and activities throughout the year, and we are going to talk about your school fair, but you also put on a lot of activities throughout the year. Can you talk a little bit about the activities that you all have coming up?
Well, sure. Well, a couple things. One is, pursuant to our mission to assist independent schools to become more diverse and inclusive place, the biggest thing I like to talk about is a community outreach piece. We get, and I'm sure the Latino Student Fund gets a similar number, we get 800 calls a year from parents in the community who are just trying to figure out what are the options that they have.
Right.
We're a school choice organization, and we're here to open the choices for all types of access. So a lot of our work is with families who are trying to find their way to independent schools, and with the independent schools so that they can create pathways for these families to access them. So we do that, but we also have a set of enrichment programs for our kids.
Right.
And I think in both of our organizations' case, many times we open up our programs to kids who are not in the regular part of our program, but we know that we can benefit.
Okay. And for the Latino Student Fund, what are the various types of programs and events that you have that you offer? I know you have a tutoring program, but what other types of services do you provide?
We have our tutoring program that is every Saturday morning. We have two sites, one here in DC and the other one in Prince George's County. We have our college access program that is we at Cardozo High School and College High School, and then we have in our tutoring program something special that for us is that we serve the entire family because most of our families do not speak English. So during the Saturday mornings, we also offer English classes for the parents and computer classes as well. So that is the way that we help them, like the entire family, to have a better education and get them ready to go to college.
How do you track success for it, especially when you have that language barrier component? How do you track success for that?
Well, that's why we are there to support them in everything that they need. We have different workshops for the families. We help them, for example, to apply to independent schools through the entire process. We also go to them to serve as translators if their school doesn't provide a Spanish-speaking person. So really, we work with them by hand to make sure that they reach their goals.
Okay, and Leroy, have you had to provide some sort of a cumulative number of students that the Black Student Fund has helped over the years?
Well, in terms of our alumni, we have about 4,500 alumni of the program. But I would say through our school fair and other things, we've touched close to 40,000 kids and families in the last 6-7 years.
Right. And for the Latino Student Fund, you said you're helping 300 families. Did you say a month or a week?
A month.
A month.
300 families a month. And since we have served more than 4,000 kids since we started.
Wow, that's just absolutely great. So, one of the reasons why people tend to not pursue private education for their students is number one, it's competitive, but number two, the cost. It's just terribly expensive for some families who have a child that's very talented or gifted. They know the child needs some additional exposure to programs that would help stimulate their gift. But there's that financial, barrier there. Sometimes it's distance. I mean, there are other things that can keep a family from, pursuing what that child really needs. But how are you all addressing that particular issue of finance, since I'm sure that comes up often?
Well, it's tough. It can be pricey. However, a couple things that I think I try to let families know. First of all, there are double-digit millions of dollars being spent by the member schools of BSF on financial aid. Millions of dollars. So I wish I could say that there is a pool of money that is deep enough to fund every child, that the independent schools would admit there is not. But there is a lot of commitment by these schools to a diverse student population. And with that commitment comes a financial aid commitment. So many of these schools are stepping up to their full potential to provide financial aid for families. So I encourage families not to decide that there is not money for them, but to complete the process, to make an attempt to find out what's available. Now, the majority of the money that is given for financial aid comes directly from the schools. There are not as many sources that are outside of the realm of the school that are available for families, like there would be for college scholarships.
Sure.
So that is not there. I would have to acknowledge that. But on the other hand, these schools value these students and make a commitment to fund them for the time that they're there. So there are a lot of students who are receiving significant financial aid.
Yes, I agree with Leroy. The most important thing is that we educate the families, because as soon as you see the tuition, they don't want to apply.
Right.
So what we do is let's apply, let's have different options for them, and then we will decide. Because the most thing that I can tell you is no. So we help them through the process. We make sure that that's why we have member schools, because we have a good relationship with independent schools. So they treat every student like a different case. So we advocate for them to make sure that they receive a financial aid package. And what the Black Student Fund and the Latino Student Fund does is support them with a small stipend, additional with the financial aid that the school that the school will give them.
That's great. And are you all tracking the students throughout their time at the school?
Yes.
Yes.
We track them, and if you follow our Facebook pages and our Twitter feeds, you'll see about their accomplishments, and you'll see the kind of things that they're into. I also wanted to add that there is oftentimes other expenses than the tuition bill.
Sure.
It might be uniform, it might be a fee for an activity, it might be
It's transportation.
These schools do a great job of summer programs. They might be traveling to take their kids to Europe or to a community service opportunity in another part of the world. And so those are some other costs. We help with those costs to the extent that the community helps us help them. So we have families who come and say, I can't afford to take the SAT again. I took it one time, I did well, but I think I can get another 100 points. And they've used up the fee waiver that's provided by the school. And they'll come to Maria and I and say, can you help us? And we do.
Right.
There may be a family who has an emergency. Child may break their glasses and needs some help right away. She's laughing because these are actual cases.
Actual cases.
Right. And we have families who come and say, we don't have any food.
Right.
We have families who come and said, we don't have X, Y, and Z. And we, to the extent that we can, are there for them for those additional expenses. And you know, sometimes they're not as big as the tuition, but $100 here, $50 there, or more can be a big deal. And then when you think about us providing that for 80 or 100 kids every year who come through the door with whatever needs, that's another piece of the financial support that we provide that I think is important.
Do you all receive any grant funding at all?
We hope to. Yes, we do. Not enough.
Yeah.
So if there's any grantors out there, please check us out, our websites. But yes, our organization historically has not received money from federal or state government. So our money comes from the donations of individuals and from foundations and other philanthropic sources on the private side.
Right. The same with us.
Wow. I mean, it takes a lot to dedicate your careers to what you all are doing. I mean, what you just described is more than a student fund or an organization for students, but for the entire family. And I know you alluded to that earlier by talking about the preparation and support that you provide to the entire family, especially in the form of translation services and so forth. But what's tugging at your heartstrings, really? What led you personally to dedicate your life to this work, Maria?
It's just like see the smile of the families when they are accepted at school that they want, make them be the first generation going to college. Like all the stories that the families come and thank us for because they didn't think that they could achieve something or they couldn't achieve going to a better education or to go to college. That is the reward part of working for an organization like the Latino Student Fund.
Right, and yours, Leroy?
Absolutely. A couple things I'd say. One is that we have very high achieving students in our programs. Thousands of students in this area apply each year to our organization. So this year I had 900 families that completed all or part of the application process, and we just accepted 25. So those are 25 amazing families. And so when you think about what those families achieve, you think about what those kids will contribute to our community. When I travel around the city, I can go right across the street to Howard University and identify our alumni who are making a difference in other people's lives. So there is absolutely the joy of the great success of our kids, but it's also the joy of knowing that we're contributing to building a better world, that the individuals in these organizations, many of these students and alumni give back in tremendous ways. And so they achieve, they give back, and they, like I said before, when you come and talk to my students, your mouth will drop. When you come and talk to students from the Latino Student Fund and they talk about where they're going and where they're headed, you get that hope that we want to see in young people. So the success of these kids through these schools, and I do want to acknowledge that I don't teach every day, that these students are at places where there is a first-class education offered. They are excelling, and that is really exciting in a time where we often talk about kids of color who are not achieving.
Right.
Our stories every day are about kids who are achieving.
Right. How do you have that barrier, if you will, with schools who might find it difficult to locate students who are excelling from underserved communities?
Oh, absolutely. Well, our schools, I'm sure Maria gets this all the time, but they can't get enough of help from us on the admissions front to make sure that their service and their product is known throughout the community. And I know in my case, we have dedicated activities and programs for targeted communities that we know will not find these schools without a bridge.
Yeah, the same with us.
So 45 years for the school fair, and that's a long time to be putting on a program. And the track record and the statistics that you have quoted are quite amazing. Now, Latino Student Fund has been in existence since the 90s, you said?
94, so almost 25 years.
Right.
Soon.
So have you been in that as a partner for 25 years then with the The Black and Latino
No, we
Student
started
Fund?
our partnership 5 years ago.
Okay.
So we used to do different school fairs, but was we're doing the same where we cannot join forces and have a bigger fair.
Right. And so now you are seeing how many students come through every year?
Well, last year we had 1,000 families register on Eventbrite in advance, and we counted about 3,800 people who came to the event. So we have a large population of people who come, and people who look forward to this every year. It's special for many reasons, but one of the things that I would say is that I run into families across this area, and I say I'm from the Black Student Fund. They're like, "Oh yeah, that's where I first found out that I could send my kid to an independent school, and that's where it all began." So knowing that for many people in this community, that's where the conversation began. We have one head of school at St. Patrick's. I think he's been to the fair every year for maybe 20 years. And so he always talks about this is one of the events he does not miss because it really allows him to touch so many people in the community.
Right.
Right. And the good thing about the fair is not that we have just the school then offering their services, but we have different workshops as well, like how to apply to independent schools, stories about the families, how they went through the experience, and how they can give advice to other families. Now we have some college workshops as well. So it's like a big affair with the component of different workshops.
And you all have a success rate, right, that you're able to quote regarding the number of students that go off to college as a result of the support
Well, all of our
services.
students.
Yeah.
All of our students go to
At
college.
100%?
Oh yeah,
100%.
100% for many,
We're
many
happy
years.
to say that.
And the majority of those students are going to colleges that have competitive admissions.
Wonderful.
And they get big fat financial aid awards
Yes,
too.
they do.
Nice. Well,
Yeah.
stay right there. We'll come back and talk about those big fat financial aid awards in just a moment.
The Black Student Fund has been around for more than 50 years, and it served as an important resource for many, many families in the area who may not have always felt welcomed to independent schools. For school heads and administrators like me, it's a bit of a party and celebration coming to this, not only seeing other school personnel, but to meet so many families some of whom have traveled from a distance, and I think they know that this is the one fair where they're going to see all the schools in the area.
Independent schools are such a wonderful resource for all the families, but particularly for families of color who may not have necessarily access that we need them to have. So this is a place where you can literally see every kind of education possible in the independent school world. So we have to give everyone an equal playing field. Black Student Fund allows us to do that.
We provide more insight into the admissions process, which has become more complicated than 50 years ago, so that families understand what they're going to have to do to actually apply to schools, complete the testing that's required for admission to the schools, and to position themselves through the financial aid process.
What I'm trying to get out of it is just basically making sure that I can give him better than what I had when I was growing up, and giving him a better start and the best education that I can give them all.
Luke is a special kid. He's pretty advanced, so we were looking for something that's affordable that we could get him in.
Today is a day where people learn that there is hundreds of millions of dollars of financial aid that's given out by these schools. Today is a day of people making connections about their dream for their kids.
I would say that the Washington, D.C. area may have some of the most diverse independent schools in the country, and I think there's a direct link with the Black Student Fund. I think it's been transformative for many individuals, but also for the schools.
Thank you for staying with us. I'm Akia Garnett, your host for Think Big, and we were just about to start talking about that financial aid support that families that you all are working with end up seeing in the form of grants and scholarships from colleges. Do you have any success stories you can talk about?
Well, I think all of our seniors are success stories because all of them have multiple college choices, and most of them have significant financial aid awards because they bring to the table strong academics, leadership skills, and other talents in athletics and arts. So our issue is to make sure that they have all the options and look at everything.
Right.
We know that somebody's going to admit them, and we know that somebody's going to fund them, because these are kids who have achieving is the par for them.
Well, from our LISTA program, that is the college prep program, we have last year 18 students of the program received $3.5 million in scholarships. So that means like most of them were full ride, and there were also private grants that they received.
Wow.
So we were so happy for them. All of them are going to college, and they have been the first year and it has been successful.
Right.
So why we're teaching is that there's money just to apply for everything. So you can find money because you are people of color, because you do sports, because you like cooking, because there are money for everywhere. The idea is just to make sure that you apply for everything. Even though it's $500 from 5 plus 5 will get you to the amount that you want. So that is our success.
Wow, that's just great. And I know that a lot of people just don't apply for the scholarships, and we can come back to that. But when it comes to the ideal student that each of your organizations are working with, because it takes a lot in your organization to help produce students who are being accepted and getting multiple offers, but it also takes a lot from the student's effort just when they come to you, what you're working with at the first base. Is there an ideal student profile that you all are striving to connect with each time?
Where for us, the idea is they want to go to college. So then we support them. We make sure that they have the right grades. We make sure, depending of their GPA, what schools they can apply. So also what we do is match them with a mentor. The mentor support them for the application process, essay writing, and also what we recommend them is to apply to different scholarships since they are in 9th grade.
Okay.
Don't wait until the end.
Right.
Well, I like to look back now from senior in college. So I wanted to add that for the last 4 years, 80+% of our students have graduated from college in 4 years. So more and more our industry is not only looking at who's going to college, but what happens to them when they go there. I can't say that I have a full persistence program to get kids through college. I track them, I provide them with episodic support. It's not really a program, but we are watching to see what happens to them. And I mentioned that because the experts are talking about grit. And my ideal student comes from a family that produces children who have grit. So I want to know that I have children who are going to engage these independent school communities actively. So I want students who are outgoing. I want students who have a variety of interests. So families come and they say, well, my son is a straight A student. My daughter is on the honor roll. That's good. These schools are academically rigorous. But I want to know that the child has a variety of interests. So I was really happy for one of the young ladies that was applying to our fund from the Washington School for Girls. After we had our interview for the application, the mother said to me, well, do you support kids who have other interests? And I said, yes. And then she said, well, my daughter's interested in cosmetology. And she was asking me that because she wanted to know whether or not I would look down on that as a less academic than other kinds of interests.
Right.
And the reality of it is, it was just the opposite. I have a daughter who does that kind of stuff, so I was ready for that question. But the reality is I want kids who have a variety of interests, who want to be involved in athletics and arts, want to be involved in speech and debate, want to develop lots of sides of who they are. Yes, the vast majority of students who come in their organization are people who their teachers said were spectacular students, honor students. But that's not really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that grit. The second thing is, I think it's very important, and I think Maria can speak to this, is independent schools work best when parents are actively involved.
Right.
And so part of what we have to do is to make sure our parents are comfortable enough and skilled enough to involve themselves in these communities.
Right.
And so I'm also looking for the parent who's going to be actively involved. Parents who are going to volunteer for the traditional things that happen in independent schools. Room parent, birthday parties, celebrations, to bring in stuff in. But also parents who might look at leadership opportunities in the school, in terms of the student,
Sure.
in terms of being involved in
Parent-student.
organization. And in many cases, I haven't gotten this successfully there yet, but the board of directors of most of these schools are parents at the schools. And so we're trying to work to get some of our parents on track to be board members.
Right. Does the whole concept of low income factor in with the families that you're